Good morning, Father Matthew here again. Hope you're all doing okay. It's another glorious day. As I say most days, just a shame that we have to stay in for most of it. I did pop out yesterday to go to the spa, to the post office, to send a CD of the song that I'd written for my daughter to her, that she should receive today. I think once I know she's received it, I may post it out. One or two people have heard it, but may do that. Um, the thing I'm thinking about today is how we use our time. And one of the things that a lot of vicars often talk about is how they use their time, because something that's quite unique about this role, I don't like to call it a job, but this role is that we don't have somebody over our shoulder, you know, from 9 to 5, making sure that we get our work done. Um, so I suppose vicars tend to go from one extreme to the other and sometimes fluctuate between the two extremes. One is that you keep going and just do far too much and then end up exhausting yourself, or other things. Now, sometimes that happens because it has to, and you know, there's just so much that actually needs to be done that you end up doing very long hours and becoming tired and all the rest of it. And in those cases, it's just a case of sort of finding a balance somewhere and taking some time when time arises again to rest and recover and all the rest of it. But of course, the other extreme is to do very little. And one of the things that many people talk about is the difference between being and doing. Because a priest, in certainly in my tradition, it's being a priest is about who you are much more than it's about what you do. Of course, the things that you do go alongside with who you are, and we do those things, but the emphasis is very much on who you are. Whereas for some other people, it could be more about, you know, what you do. Well, the priest is the person who presides at the Eucharist or does this or that. Um, and one of the reasons that that discussion is interesting is because it does affect the whole view of what you do. And a wise priest said to me recently that he remembered when he was first ordained being given the advice, you know, to allow himself to spend the morning just reading a book. Needn't even be a religious book or a spiritual book. Could just be a novel, but to take that time to read and all the rest of it. Or to spend time thinking. And I remember as I was coming up to my ordination to the priesthood, having a meeting with the then bishop of the diocese, who told me the story about when he was a curate that he'd gone to the prom. He was in a coastal town down south, and was sitting there thinking, and he'd been busy and was taking some time to rest, and somebody from the church had bumped into him and said, "Oh, I thought you'd be out visiting or something." And you know, he just sort of thought, "Well, I had 5 minutes to myself." And you know, somebody says that and makes me feel guilty. And guilt is something that goes along a lot with what we do. And you know, I must confess that sometimes I feel guilty that you know, I'm not able to do more or whatever else in these circumstances. But here we are. Um, but the thing about that is that obviously in this period a lot of our choices are limited. You know, and so what we can do is limited, and the same for me. And as you know, I've been spending a lot of time composing and recording music and things. And I must confess, it's something that I've been really enjoying, and something that's brought a lot of life to me again. But I've been reflecting on the whole process of it, because, of course, the music I've been recording is all me. It's me playing the keyboard and the violin and doing all the vocals and everything else. So it's a long and laborious process. And you know, from my teenage years, I've been a big fan of the Irish singer Enya, and she works in very much the same way, that it's all her voice. So the whole process of recording is a very difficult and laborious one. Um, but these things that we do, whether it's reading or sitting in the garden thinking or doing music, um, it all feeds all the holy things that we do. And for example, if a congregation wants their vicar to do good sermons, then obviously the vicar needs time to think, to prepare, to just get to grips with what the scriptures are saying and what the priest feels that God is saying. So what the experience of doing these recordings that I've done so far have shown me is all about perfection, really, because you record something and then you listen back to it and it's not quite right, so you have to do it again, and sometimes you have to do it again and again. And on one of the tracks that I'll put a link to in today's email, it has 25 different tracks, 8 different vocal tracks and all sorts of things. And one of the tracks, which in fact two, because of different reasons, I put them into 2 tracks. One of them was a drum rhythm that I was playing, and it was very hard because everything else had been recorded in, to a specific beat and everything. But I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, it took me a long time to get the beats in time. I ended up doing about 70 different takes until I found one that was okay. Probably not quite precise, but good enough. And I did them in groups of 10, and if there wasn't one in that 10, I started again and all that. But then there are other tracks that I've recorded where sometimes the lack of perfection is what actually makes it good, because of the emotional content or whatever else. And I suppose it leaves us with the question of how far we're willing to go, really, because you could spend your whole life doing things over and over and over again until you get them right, or you can just accept the imperfections and keep moving on. And I suppose that's true for our lives, in that, we might get all frustrated or upset with ourselves because we haven't got things perfect in our lives. But sometimes it is those imperfections that sort of make us who we are, and sometimes even bring out the good stuff and the more meaningful stuff in our lives. But also, the whole process of doing everything myself in the music is interesting because, like the example of the drum beat, when you're playing in a group and you've got the whole sound around you, if one of you sort of goes slightly wrong or speeds up slightly or slows down slightly, you all go together. And there's something about that going together. But of course, when you're doing it all in separation, you have to sort of fit in with something that you're not directly then part of. You're just trying to fit in. And of course, in this period, we're in this time where we're all operating separately, not together. And it's when we come together to worship and to pray and all the other things that things tend to go much better. But of course, in this sort of isolated way, things become much different. So there we are. Really, it's that's sort of what all of this stuff is leading me to. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say. It's quite a long video, this one. So look after yourselves and each other, and may God bless you. Bye for now.